I don't think people realize too how old and what you did at the age 16. So you got with BDP.
Yeah, man.
16. You wrote Self-Destruction.
Well, I didn't write it.
You produced it. You produced
yes.
it at that time. But you were a part of, and you talk about the golden age of hip hop. And not, we used to South Bronx and you used to rock to that all the time. But when you look back at that time period, and if you've grown so much over the years, what are the lessons or what really stand out that helped you manage and negotiate the new stardom that came along with Club Quarantine post-COVID?
So young stardom was all based on records. It was all based on, I was a part of a crew, KRS-One, one of the greatest MCs. He was able to write these records that, South Bronx and My Philosophy and Jack of Spades. Mm-hmm. But I was this young kid on the other side that was doing a lot of the beats. I would find the old records that we sampled, and bring them to Chris, or I would program them myself. That journey of like being when you're a part of a group with one of the most prolific MCs, you got to know that you're a role player. Mm-hmm. So I was a role player in BDP. I wasn't number one guy. I had to play my part, and my part was coming up with these ideas for certain tracks. Cool. And I was also the DJ after Scott Rock passed away. So I was the DJ for the group. I knew my role. My role was great. And, I produced Self-Destruction. We sold nearly 1 million copies with that. The BDP albums that I worked on, from By All Means Necessary to the Ghetto Music, The Blueprint, to Edutainment, all 3 of those albums. I did multiple songs on all of those albums. They were all gold. Went gold, which is 500,000 copies, and we toured, did all those things. And then I decided that I wanted to do my own solo career as well. When I was like 19 years old, put out my first album, did extremely well with that. Call Me D-Nice. Toured with, I did 70 City Tour with Ice Cube and Too Short, which was interesting because a lot of times you didn't see that many like East Coast, West Coast kind of like, tours going together. But I was like mad young, and those tours were great because it was like, I was out with Cube, and it was a great time, man.
But how would you get connected with being with BDP and everything on the East Coast in New York? It would be like you would be with a tour with guys from the East Coast or groups from the East Coast.
From the West Coast.
I mean, no, from the East Coast just because of where you were at with BDP.
Oh, yes.
So how did you get with Cube on that tour?
Man, this was all Cube's idea. This was literally all Cube. It was my first tour ever, solo, being on a solo tour without KRS. And it was fun, 70 cities with people actually. I mean, obviously, most of the people were coming to see Ice Cube. Let's be very clear.
Yeah, right.
But I had my show and I had my set, and I was able to grow. And I think because of that, when we talk about where I am now, fast forward. Obviously, I don't rap these days, and most of what I do is all DJing. But from what I learned from them and being accepted by. Not just, look, I got the Keys to the City and New Orleans and, D-Nice Day in Houston. Like, they were playing all of my records. It wasn't just based on BDP. And touring with Cube showed me that, that there's a whole world outside of New York City. And when you learn to embrace them, they will never forget it, And that's how I live my life as a DJ. I don't go into someone's city thinking, I'm just going to play Mobb Deep and every New York hip hop record and Jay-Z. Like, no, I go into each city that I'm in and I know what their music is, and I have a love and respect for their culture. I do sprinkle in my New York flavor. I sprinkle that in, but I give people what they want. Now, you fast forward to Club Quarantine, that same thing applies. When I stood in front of that camera for nearly 2 years, I poured so much of myself into that. I gave you everything I could in terms of music. Mm-hmm. I love music. You and I talk about music. Yep. We smoke cigars. We talk music. We're old school. You put me on to the Marvin Gaye album I didn't even know existed. You know what I mean? And we talk music. So to be able to share my love of music for people throughout these decades has been, man, you talk about having something that means so much to you. Mm-hmm. I feel grateful that people accept me.
Check out new episodes of The Jim Jackson Show every Thursday. Watch on the Rich Eisen Show YouTube page. Follow the show on Instagram at Jim Jackson Show, or listen wherever you get your podcasts.